Hey, how's it going, everyone? So what am I working on now? Well, I'm actually working on my Dodge truck. I got to do the water pump on it. I drove it down to the shop because I didn't really feel like doing this in my driveway. And I kind of played the odds. I'm like, do I think it'll last? Yeah, I think it'll last making it to the shop. I mean, I'm 42 miles away. It takes me about an hour to get here because I got to take all back roads for the most part. Anyway, so I got it in the shop. I'm getting ready to do the water pump. And let me just show you what I got. So here we go. If you notice on these Dodges, they do a weird thing where they offset the radiator to one side and the condenser to the other. Just kind of an odd setup. And they mount, the motor is obviously mounted correctly, but they have this shroud with everything's offset and it basically sucks the air in from over here. So what I gotta do is take the shroud out. What I gotta do is take the bottles out, the washer and the overflow bottle, and it'll come out as an assembly. There's a 10 here, and I think that's it. And I think it just slides in at the bottom, I'm not sure. I'm gonna take the air filter housing out. Basically, I'm gonna undo one of these clamps for the snorkel and just pop this whole thing up and out. Comes off pretty easy. It's just pushed down on like rubber retainers. Let me get that stuff out of the way. I didn't start draining it yet. I got here about an hour and a half ago. Had some stuff to do here first. I did that. But now, actually, I topped this off before I left. Never open hot. Okay, the level really didn't go down all that much. Not a big deal. But yeah, let me start getting all that stuff off, and we're going to go from there. Airbox out of the way. Like I said, it was just a one clamp I took off right there, and got the whole thing down there. Came right out. The two bolts up there. It's got connectors down here. One is for washer and one is for low coolant. The low coolant was already disconnected. So there's probably a problem with the sensor. Not uncommon. I'm not going to bother fixing it because I don't care. Actually, no, not low coolant, low washer. So I don't care about that. So here we go. As you can see, the washer bottle is actually full. What I did was I pulled, there's a connector in the line. Basically, I pulled it off and I put a plug on the end just to keep all the fluid from dripping out of it. You could even put it directly on the pump if you wanted to. All right, so now next step, we're gonna get the cooling fan off. Now, a lot of people would ask, what direction does cooling fan go in? Because they do go in either clockwise or counterclockwise rotation, you know, the threads. How do you know? Well, hopefully you're replacing the pump and then you'll know because you just look at the new one. Here's the new pump, and if you look at the threads, it's clockwise to tighten. Basically, you would go in that direction to tighten, so it's that direction to loosen. Now, on this style, because this doesn't have, basically the pulley is part of the pump. The pulley doesn't bolt to the pump. Vehicles that do have bolts that hold the pulley on, they're a little bit easier. This has holes, so you need some kind of a spanner wrench to get in there to hold it. Other people I've seen use air chisels or hammer and chisel to hit the nut to break them free. I hate doing that. I hate destroying stuff like that. So I, at all cost, avoid that. Basically, let me show you the tools that I would use to do this. All right, so these tools here. This wrench grabs the hex part of the fan clutch. Like such, okay? Two different sizes depending on what you're working on. This tool would be if you had the pulley that's a bolt-on pulley. And what it does is it will go around the pulley and it will grab two of the bolts and basically lock it in place so this way you could hold it. Unfortunately, this doesn't have that design. So I have to use this. Now, if you don't have one of these, which I'm pretty sure many of you don't, if you don't have something like this, then you can probably rent something from the parts store. This I got from obviously Mac Tools when Mac Tools was actually a company that cared about their customers. They no longer care about their customers, so I don't deal with them anymore, haven't for 20 plus years. I tried to several times, but they keep failing me each and every time, so Mac Tools, go scratch. You have this tool, and you have all these different little adapters, and these are what fits into the holes in the pulley. Actually, let me grab that pump again, hang on. And yes, it's a new pump. I would never put a reman pump on anything unless I didn't have a choice, like if it was some kind of rare classic. So you find the little nubbies, the little titties that fit in. and grab, and then you screw them into the end of this tool. Let me do that, and then let me get this set up, and I'll show you how you break it free. So there, the tool being like that, what you're going to do is you can grab like either two holes like this to hold it, or two holes like this and hold it. This way you can hold it back and break the fan clutch free. If you could tell by my tone there, I have a real disdain for Mac tools. I tried many times, many times, and I had nothing but grief and aggravation with them, so I will no longer deal with them. I had plenty of Mac tools. As they broke, I threw them in the garbage. Didn't care. Oh, you could send them in for warranty. Nope, if you won't stand behind your product and have somebody show up to me, I will never buy from you again, plain and simple. That's how it stands. So I can't even get a Mac. I tried to get a Mac tool guy to show up here. They won't even answer me. So, the Mac tools. All right, let me get this free. Okay, so hopefully you can hear me with this and see what I'm doing. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this tool and I'm going to stick it into two of the holes in here. At least try to. There we go. And I'm going to hold it back. Now, as you can see, it holds it. So now I'm going to do that and break the fan free, hopefully. There we go. So the fan broke free reasonably easy. And luckily, from what I can tell, because I know this thing's been apart before, I can see some wrench marks on it. But luckily, I don't see any air hammer marks on it. I hate when people do that. I mean, if you had absolutely no choice, okay, I can see it. But if you're working in a shop and you have access to the tools and you do that kind of work, that to me is not cool. Now, when this thing gets close to the end, be careful so you don't just drop it off, because then it can go flying forward and hit the radiator, and then you have a situation similar to what I wound up doing on that Honda, where I put a hole in the radiator. Okay. And it did fall, it didn't hit anything. Okay, it's out. So there we go. The fan is out. All right, now I'm going to drain the coolant. Now one thing, when you have a fan out, inspect the clutch portion here. Feels nice and tight, feels good. Because if you think you got a problem, now's the time to change it. Also check your, hold on, let me back up. Also check your fan blades, make sure there's no cracks in them. There's no cracks in this looks good. So this can go back on. Because if you got cracks, you may want to change it now. If that thing comes apart while you're driving, you're going to have a real problem. All right, now, the other thing, draining coolant. A lot of times, you got the petcock, which is down here, the drain. You can see the white tip all the way down there. A lot of times on a lot of cars, a lot of different kinds of cars, especially older ones like this one, you go and break the drain cock, petcock, drain, whatever you want to call it. You break it free, the O-ring winds up cracking in the process. You don't realize it because this thing stays captured. Now you tighten up, you go to fill it with coolant, and you get a constant drip, drip, drip from the drain. Only way to fix that is to replace the O-ring. So if I can all avoid it, I don't bother taking it out anymore. Usually I look to take a hose off, and on this, I got the heater hoses come down, and they attach right there to the lower part of the front cover housing, basically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of the hoses off and I'm going to drain the system that way. And so there you go. It's actually slowly leaking out, and if you listen, I have the cap loose, but I still have it in place because it acts like a valve almost. It basically restricts the airflow, so that thing comes out under a controlled rate. I have other things to take off. I'm going to let that go for a while. So at least this way, it doesn't just come out and splash and go all over the place. So, and it's coming out about as fast as basically like the drain would allow it to come out. So, all right, let's take the shroud off. The shroud is pretty simple. The shroud only has two 10 millimeters, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, one here and one on the other side, and the whole shroud comes out and it's out of the way. Let me get those out. Okay, shroud out of the way. Like I said, just the two screws came right out. Next thing we're going to do is the tensioner, and the tensioner, or the belt rather. Tensioner is just a 15, and you pop it up like that. Take the belt off. Try to remember the orientation of the belt when you go to put the new one on. If it's something you're going to forget, make a diagram so you remember how it goes. All right, let me get that belt off, and then we're gonna. Oh, after the belt is off too, you got to take the lower idler pulley off because it blocks two of the bolts for the water pump. Now with the belt out of the way, it's time to pull the pump off. As you can see, I have dirt daubers in there that made a nest around that one bolt. I could chisel that away, but it's a bunch of 13s or 15s rather, I think. Or are they 13s? I'm not even sure. Figure it out in a minute. Don't recall. One other thing I'm going to do too is I'm doing a thermostat. If you're ever doing a thermostat on a 3.7 or a 4.7 that has the lower thermostat like this, be mindful the lower bolt that's on there, especially if you're in a rust belt area, the lower bolt can snap off in the housing, and then you're going to have a miserable day. And you know, bad words are going to come out of your mouth, you know, stuff like that. Trust me, because it's happened to me multiple times, where it happened to me twice, and then I learned, and I would heat them up after that. But I've had to save some other guys that have done it and snapped them off. It's just a common thing. Mainly it's rust belt type vehicles. Hopefully this will come out without any issue. But let me get this pump off, and we'll go ahead and put the new one on. So all the bolts are out. So now, give it a little light wrap. Just like that. And they usually come right out. So as you can see, you have water inside the motor, or coolant inside the motor, it's going to be coming out. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. I'm going to clean up the gasket surface with some Scotch-Brite pad by hand. Try not to use those whiz wheels. They do come in handy. If you're going to use a whiz wheel on aluminum like this, usually what I do is I save whiz wheels and I save whiz wheels, and what I do is as they wear out and they lose that actual material that's on there, as it loses the material and they get really dull, I save those and I use them on aluminum when I get to aluminum in a situation where it's like too difficult to do by hand, and obviously you got to be careful, but that's what I do. All right, let me get this cleaned up and let's get the new water pump going. All right, I cleaned it all off. I blew out all the holes with compressed air. One thing I do whenever I'm doing a water pump is I always put a little bit of thread sealant on the bolts, especially when it goes through like an aluminum cover like this, just to be on the safe side. Not going to hurt nothing. All right, so now let me get this installed. I got to put the gasket on here. It's just an O-ring. After I get this all done, I'll show you the old water pump. It's underneath the car. I don't feel like digging it out right now. So now I just got to lay that gasket in place. Let me go find it. It's here somewhere. Okay. There's no need to put a ton of silicone or whatever. The gasket fits nicely in here. As long as it's clean and it doesn't have oil on it, it'll fit just fine. And just make sure that it's pushed down into the receiver groove. Now Hondas, the older Hondas, used to have an O-ring that give you like this round O-ring to fit like something like this. And it's like you could never get it to sit right, so you'd actually have to glue the stupid O-ring in place. But on these, it sits perfectly fine. It's actually got a good fit in there. Obviously, you have like a guiding notch, and also it won't just fall out, it'll stay. All right, let me get this in place and go from there. All right, so with that down and tight now we can move on to the thermostat. Whenever you're tightening something like this down, go down a little bit on each screw, each bolt. Don't go all the way down tight on one. Don't even like bottom it out. Get it close. Because what will happen is, because it's an O-ring type gasket, it's actually pretty thick. It has to crush. So if you go down on one point and then all of a sudden you go to the other side to tighten it down, you can actually seesaw it. You can actually have it, do something like get tight like this, and then you go to bring the other side down. Instead of it tightening like this, it can actually do this, and you can actually break it. I've seen it happen. I've seen people break ears off. So just something to think about. Just go nice and easy, and then when you get it down to like where it's sitting flush, then start going like a quarter turn each until it bottoms out. Then you can tighten it. All right, so now with the thermostat housing, we're going to take it out by hand. And the reason for that is, like I said, that lower bolt has a tendency to break. I don't want to break it. I'm not in the mood. So let's see. Nope, I don't like how that's feeling already. Nope. I am not liking that. All right. I think what I'm going to have to do is put this up in the air so I can get underneath it and add some heat to it. But no, I can't because I don't have a thermostat housing for this. Because it's plastic, it'll melt. All right. I wasn't really having problems with the thermostat, so I'm going to leave it alone. I'll put thermostat in at another point in time. Maybe when I do the when I fix the heater box. All right, let's just reassemble. So, like I always say, reverse procedure to install. If I come across something I need to show you, I'll show you. Okay, I just wanted to show you the belt in place, so everything's looking good. Shroud, fan, that's basically it. Fill it with coolant, then we're going to be good to go. Okay, one final thing I want to show you on this assembly. Putting a fan on. I already had the fan on there and started, but as you can see, it's not tightened up yet. So screw it down till it gets tight on its own, which there it is, it's tight on its own. And now, I'm going to get the wrench down there and on there. And you notice I'm not holding the pulley with the other tool. There. That's tight enough. You don't have to go bananas tightening those things up. I've seen it way too often where somebody goes absolutely Hulk Hogan on those things, and, and holds both ends and tightens it up. Not necessary. Not necessary, because then you never get it apart again. So, it's like tightening an oil filter, with a tool. Not necessary. Not necessary to make stuff that tight. Make it that tight, it'll be perfect. This is my own truck. My wife drives this. I don't want her breaking down. Trust me, it's absolutely perfect. I'll drive this thing to California like that. It's just saying. Stuff I get passionate about. All right, let me finish the installation, put coolant in it, and we're done. Actually, no, I got to change the oil. Okay. Okay, everything's all assembled. We're going to put coolant in it. Now, on the Dodge 3.7s and 4.7s, a lot of manufacturers too, they put a bleeder. This isn't really a bleeder. It's just you open up a passageway. Now, you see how high up this is? Let me see if I can focus in on that. See how that's raised up? Okay. I've seen it to where people go and put these things back together, and they actually tighten them up so tight they go in. It's a tapered fit, and they actually go below the surface. It's almost impossible to get back out. You'll round them out or whatever. I've seen them crack housings. That's the whole front cover. So use your brain. When you tighten it up, just snug it up, be done with it. When you take them out too, when you go to put them back in, you may want to put a little bit of thread sealer on there, since it is a coolant passage. But yeah, we'll take that out. Let's fill it with coolant. So all together, full of coolant, bled out. Started her up. Actually, let me open up the door first. I don't want to asphyxiate myself. And we still got to change the oil. I'm happy with it. All right, I'll let it heat up and change the oil. All right, hopefully you got something out of that. If you did, hit that like button. If you could, please subscribe. All right, guys, have a great day. Keep wrenching. Almost forgot to show you. So here's the pump I took off. Really nothing special to see on here. It's a Mopar pump too. So I wonder if it's the original pump. It's possible. I see a date code on here somewhere. I see dirt dauber nests. I see a date code. All right. Yeah, I know it was leaking. I know it had play in it, and it's possible it's original pump. I mean, it's a Mopar pump. Wait a minute, is that a date? No, it's not a date. Anything's possible. Oh, all right. That's it. I said I was going to show you. That's it. And if you're wondering about that rim, that's my step. I've been using that for years, so I'm not worried about scratching it up because it's not a customer's rim. So it's actually off of a an E350 or an E250. But I use that as my step, you know, when I got to get up underneath the hood, stuff like that. It comes in very handy. But all right, anyway, thought I'd show you that. Thanks. That's it. Have a great day. Keep wrenching.